In this video, we're going to dive deep of Family Guy lore to fall asleep to, but it's only conspiracy theories. We'll investigate various outlandish and intriguing conspiracy theories that have emerged from the Family Guy universe, digging into the hidden truths and unsettling possibilities lurking beneath Quahog's surface. This inaugural episode, right from the very start, sets an incredibly strange tone, hinting at a world far more complex and manipulated than it first appears. We join the Griffin family in their kitchen, where Meg is expressing a desire for collagen injections, a moment Lois dismisses by citing poor self-image as the root of many world problems. This seemingly innocuous conversation immediately cuts to a gym, where a dejected Adolf Hitler is lifting tiny dumbbells, watching a muscular man with a yarmulke being admired by women. It's a jarring, satirical jump that feels like a glitch in the fabric of reality, a sudden, inexplicable peek into a parallel universe of historical figures. But the true unease begins with Stewie. As Meg and Chris do their homework, Stewie, still in his high chair, is seen meticulously working on a blue and yellow ray gun with a screwdriver. He declares, in his perfectly articulate British accent, that his mind control device is nearing completion. This isn't just a baby playing. This is a 1-year-old with advanced engineering skills and a clear, sinister agenda. Where does a baby, even one as brilliant as Stewie, acquire such sophisticated technology and the knowledge to build it? The show doesn't explain, leaving us to wonder if he's a product of some unknown experiment, or perhaps even an alien intelligence in disguise. When Lois casually takes his device, calling it a toy, Stewie unleashes a torrent of venom, declaring his victory day was the fruition of my deeply laid plans to escape from that cursed ovarian Bastille. It paints a picture of a being far older, far more calculating, trapped in an infant's body, hinting at a past life or a hidden origin story we're not privy to. The episode then introduces another layer of peculiarity when Meg tries to turn up the thermostat. Peter bursts in, seemingly knowing instantly who touched it, and casually states it's due to a brain implant, a device every father supposedly has, to monitor their children. Right on cue, their neighbor Joe's thing goes off, confirming the bizarre, widespread nature of this unseen surveillance. It makes you wonder, right, if fathers have these implants, what other hidden technologies or control mechanisms are integrated into daily life in Quahog? What else are people unknowingly monitored for? Peter's subsequent job loss for sleeping at the happy-go-lucky toy company, leading to hazardous toys being released, feels almost like a setup. A knife, a power strip, a gasoline can, a porcupine, and a toaster with forks in it all pass him on the conveyor belt. It's so absurdly dangerous that it begs the question, was Peter meant to fail, perhaps as a catalyst for future events? His immediate thought, after Brian suggests telling Lois the truth about his job, isn't about honesty, but about how he didn't really stand up to that tank in Tiananmen Square, implying a fabricated past, a false memory, or perhaps a different timeline where he did intervene. The narrative then takes a dramatic turn into the realm of welfare fraud, but on an almost unbelievable scale. Peter, initially worried about $150 a week, mistakenly receives a check for $150,000. Instead of correcting the error, he embraces it, buying a moat, renting the statue of David, hiring a jester, and even getting Meg collagen lip injections and Chris breast implants. The sheer ease with which he manipulates the system, and the incredible amount of money he's given, feels less like a simple mistake and more like a deliberate, almost orchestrated event. Could someone be funneling money through Peter? Or is the entire welfare system in Quahog a shambolic front for something else entirely? The climax arrives in the courtroom, where Peter is on trial for welfare fraud. Lois delivers a heartfelt speech, earning her a 24-month sentence alongside Peter. But just as the gavel is about to fall, the Kool-Aid man bursts through the courtroom wall, then slowly backs away, as if realizing he made a mistake or was not meant to intervene. This bizarre, fourth wall-breaking appearance is quickly followed by Stewie, hidden in the gallery, successfully zapping the judge with his mind control ray. The judge immediately reverses his decision, freeing Peter and even giving him his job back. This final act of manipulation, a baby orchestrating a legal outcome with a futuristic weapon, is the ultimate conspiracy. It confirms Stewie's incredible power and the vulnerability of authority in Quahog. It makes you wonder how many other critical moments in the town's history have been subtly influenced or outright controlled by Stewie, or perhaps by the unseen forces that allow Stewie to operate with such impunity. The episode closes with Peter planning another scam, a minority scholarship, donning an afro wig, demonstrating a complete lack of consequences and a cyclical pattern of deceit. This first episode, right out of the gate, reveals a Quahog riddled with unexplained phenomena, subtle mind control, and a reality that bends to the whims of its most outlandish inhabitants. It's a world where babies build ray guns, fathers have brain implants, and massive welfare fraud goes unpunished, all hinting at a deeper, more unsettling truth about the nature of this animated universe. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button to help the channel grow. Now, let's continue. Our journey continues with Season 2, Episode 3, where the very fabric of reality itself seems to unravel, only to be woven back together in the most unsettling way. This episode, titled Chitty Chitty Death Bang, plunges us into the anxieties of the Millennium Bug, Y2K, but ultimately reveals a truth far stranger than any computer glitch. As the year 1999 draws to a close, the Griffin family is like any other, watching the news. But Peter, ever susceptible to external influence, has a fateful encounter with the giant chicken, who, after a brief scuffle, warns him about the impending Y2K apocalypse. This seemingly trivial interaction ignites a deep-seated paranoia in Peter, leading him to frantic preparations. He loads his station wagon with survival supplies, much to the amusement and mockery of his neighbors, Joe, Quagmire, and Cleveland. It's almost as if the universe wanted Peter to believe in the doomsday scenario. As New Year's Eve arrives, the family prepares for a party, with Stewie even sporting a baby New Year sash. But Peter, now fully committed to his Y2K fears, emerges in a full hazmat suit. He then, with surprising force, lures and locks his entire family in the basement, promising them a Christmas gift they always wanted, which turns out to be a forced Y2K bunker experience. Down in the cramped, supply-filled basement, they watch a small television screen. As the countdown ends, the broadcast immediately cuts to chilling scenes of planes crashing and nuclear explosions around the world, convincing Peter that the apocalypse has indeed arrived. When the family eventually emerges from the basement, Quahog is utterly destroyed, a desolate wasteland reminiscent of a Mad Max film. Lois cooks eggs on a license plate over a barrel fire, and in perhaps one of the most bizarre transformations, Cleveland and Quagmire have fused into a single, grotesque entity they call Quagland. As Peter and Brian venture into the ruins, they discover the Quahog 5 news station, where a truly disturbing scene unfolds. News anchors Tom Tucker and Diane Simmons are cannibalizing the body of their Asian reporter, Trisha Takanawa. It's a graphic, unsettling moment that pushes the boundaries of the show's dark humor. The family then embarks on a desperate journey, encountering a Mad Max-style gang whom they must defeat in a bizarre game of Family Feud. They even run into Randy Newman, who provides a mournful, self-referential soundtrack to their despair. Their quest leads them to a miraculous discovery: the Twinkie Factory, built into a mountain, overflowing with the indestructible snack cakes. This leads to the rebuilding of society, with Peter, naturally, elected mayor for life of New Quahog. However, his reign quickly turns tyrannical as he repurposes irrigation pipes into guns, sparking a revolt that forces the Griffins to flee once more, this time towards the promise of a Carvel factory. Yet, as the family walks down a desolate road, singing, the entire elaborate, post-apocalyptic saga abruptly cuts away. We are transported to a live-action bedroom, where a woman, Pam from the television show Dallas, wakes up in bed, gasping. Her husband, Bobby Ewing, is in the shower. The entire hours-long Family Guy episode, with all its bizarre twists, cannibalism, and societal collapse, was nothing more than Pam's dream. This reveal is more than just a comedic punchline. It's a profound, unsettling conspiracy. It begs the question, who or what is powerful enough to orchestrate such a vivid, detailed, and lengthy dream, complete with characters from an entirely different television universe? Was Peter's Y2K paranoia deliberately amplified to serve as the subject of this elaborate psychological experiment? The sheer scale of the apocalypse and its perfectly tailored absurdities, from Quahog to the cannibalistic news anchors, feels too specific to be random. It suggests an external, meta-level manipulator, perhaps a higher consciousness, or a collective dreaming entity that uses the Family Guy universe as its playground, testing the limits of its characters, or simply enjoying a twisted form of entertainment. The dream is so complex, so fully realized, that it implies a deliberate, powerful force at work, making us wonder if the entire reality of Quahog is merely a construct, a simulation, or a dream within a dream, waiting for its next architect to awaken. The implications are staggering, suggesting that the very existence of the Griffin family, and indeed all of Quahog, could be at the whim of some unseen dreamer or programmer. E Peterbus Unum, an episode that delves into the unsettling idea of forgotten spaces and the bizarre, almost cosmic loopholes that seem to exist within the very geography of Quahog. The story begins with Peter's neighbors, Cleveland, Joe, and Quagmire, excitedly discussing their tax refunds, which they've used to buy a trampoline, a digital TV, and a rather questionable plug-in playmate. Peter naturally feels a pang of envy. However, his own tax refund turns out to be an audit notice, which he hilariously misinterprets as an Audi notice. This leads him to an IRS office, where a bizarre agent flirts with him in an unsettling manner. The interaction is absurd, but it sets the stage for Peter's frustrations with officialdom. Driven by a desire for a swimming pool and a need to escape his tax woes, Peter begins digging a large hole in his backyard. In a moment of classic Peter negligence, he strikes and cuts a blue power line, causing a widespread blackout that affects his neighbors in comically disastrous ways. A power company worker arrives and informs Peter that he can't build a pool due to zoning laws. Peter, already annoyed, insults the worker's appearance, leading to a cutaway of Peter sketching the man nude in a strange artistic interlude. Incensed by the red tape, Peter storms into Quahog Town Hall to confront Mayor Adam West. The mayor, in a fit of paranoia, attacks Peter before realizing his mistake. It's during this chaotic meeting that the episode's central conspiracy begins to unfurl. Mayor West shows Peter a town map, and to everyone's astonishment, Peter's property at 31 Spooner Street is a black, unlabeled void. West explains with a straight face that Peter's land is not officially part of Quahog, nor even the United States. Can you imagine? An entire piece of residential property, just unmapped, unowned, existing in a bureaucratic limbo. Seizing this incredible, inexplicable loophole, Peter immediately declares his backyard an independent nation, naming it Ptoria, and proudly hoists a flag featuring his own face. This is the moment a profound conspiracy is revealed. How could such a significant piece of land go completely unrecognized for so long? Was it a forgotten oversight, a deliberate omission, or perhaps a hidden feature of Quahog's reality, a kind of blank slate waiting for someone to claim it? The very existence of Ptoria implies a deeply flawed, perhaps even manipulated, system of geopolitical boundaries within the Family Guy universe. Peter immediately abuses his newfound diplomatic immunity, engaging in a montage of chaotic acts, dancing in the street, kicking over trash cans, and chaining Joe Swanson to a truck while spray painting Ptoria forever on a wall. His actions, while childish, are granted the weight of international law. He even addresses the United Nations General Assembly, where he is mocked until an Iraqi delegate advises him to invade a weaker country to gain respect. Following this bizarre council, Peter invades Joe's backyard pool, declaring it the newest province of Ptoria, Johio. The international community, as absurdly as it operates in Quahog, responds. The United States military, including tanks and helicopters, surrounds the Griffin house, which is now fenced off with barbed wire. Operation Desert Clam begins, cutting off Ptoria's power, water, and gas. Lois and the children, fed up with Peter's antics, pack their bags to leave for America, abandoning him and Brian. Stewie, ever the pragmatist, even urges Peter to make an example of Lois for her treason. This moment subtly highlights Stewie's chillingly logical, detached view of power, even when his family is involved. The celebrity world even gets involved, with actress Susan Sarandon making a public plea for aid for Stewie, whom she is holding in a moment of meta-commentary on real-world celebrity activism. Peter then hosts a pool party for various world dictators, including Slobodan Milosevic, Muammar Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, and Fidel Castro, who play Marco Polo in his pool. It's a surreal image that underscores the utter absurdity of Peter's nation and the strange bedfellows it attracts. When a U.S. military general announces an impending attack, Peter, seeing a missile aimed directly at his house, finally surrenders. In a darkly comedic twist, the missile is redirected and hits Quagmire's house instead, leaving Peter's relatively unscathed, perhaps hinting at a strange, almost protective, narrative force around the Griffins. The crisis resolves at a peace negotiation table, where Peter agrees to give up Ptoria in exchange for access to Joe's pool and Mayor West's pen. The episode then flashes forward 200 years to a futuristic classroom in a spaceship, where a version of Lois is teaching children the story of Ptoria. A student raises his hand and asks if the family could understand the baby. This final scene is perhaps the most profound conspiracy of all. It implies that Peter's bizarre nation-building wasn't just a fleeting gag, but a significant historical event within the Family Guy universe. More importantly, the child's question about understanding Stewie suggests that, even centuries later, the fundamental mystery of Stewie's advanced intellect and the family's inability to comprehend him remains an unsolved puzzle, a constant, almost pre-programmed, element of their existence. It makes you wonder if their roles are fixed, their destinies predetermined, in a reality that's far less spontaneous than it seems. This bizarre geopolitical anomaly of Ptoria hints at a world where boundaries are fluid, a concept that Stewie himself would soon begin to master with his own experiments, subtly altering not just locations, but time itself. Our journey continues with Season 3, Episode 17, Brian Wallows and Peter Swallows, an episode that, while seemingly focused on personal growth and loss, subtly hints at the manipulated nature of perception and the arbitrary cruelties within the Quahog universe. The episode opens with Brian on a rather unsuccessful date with a woman named Tina at the Taste of Sicily Ristorante. His dejection leads him to drink, and he's subsequently pulled over by Officer Joe Swanson, who, in a rather casual display of Quahog's small-town interconnectedness, uses a breathalyzer on him and arrests him. Brian is found guilty in court, and in a truly odd moment, Stewie celebrates with a dance on the courtroom table while the judge simultaneously officiates a wedding for Mayor Adam West. Brian's sentence? 100 hours of community service, which involves caring for an old woman named Pearl Burton. Meanwhile, Peter embarks on a bizarre subplot, growing a thick, bushy beard. In a truly inexplicable turn of events, a small, endangered yellow bird makes a nest in his beard, and an ornithologist, Dr. Goodman, informs Peter that he cannot disturb it. This forces Peter to live with the birds, feeding them, sharing milkshakes, and even reading them bedtime stories. The birds eventually grow up and fly away, leaving Peter tearful. This entire sequence feels like a strange, localized anomaly, a fleeting, almost magical intervention in Peter's life that appears and disappears without a trace, making you wonder if the universe sometimes conjures up these absurd realities just for Peter. The heart of the episode, however, lies in Brian's relationship with Pearl. He arrives at her lavender-colored house, where she first delouses him before letting him in. Despite her initial eccentricities, Brian and Pearl bond deeply. He listens, captivated, as she sings opera beautifully. Their connection blossoms into a long, psychedelic musical number, You've Got a Lot to See, where they dance through a vibrant, colorful background, their outfits changing to match the decades from the 1960s to the 2000s. They experience a lifetime of joy and shared moments in this fantastical, almost dreamlike sequence. However, the blissful illusion shatters abruptly. As Brian and a now happy Pearl emerge from her house, she is immediately hit and killed by a large truck. The sudden, random, and brutal nature of her death, right after such a profound, beautiful experience, is a jarring reminder of the chaotic and often indifferent underlying logic of the Quahog universe. It's almost as if the universe allows these moments of pure connection and joy, only to snatch them away with casual cruelty. Grief-stricken, Brian visits Pearl in the hospital, where she lies unresponsive. In a powerful, yet subtly unsettling act, Brian retrieves the virtual reality kit from the planetarium that Peter had previously tried. He places the headset on Pearl, creating a final, blissful virtual experience for her. In this simulated world, they get married, honeymoon in Paris, and dance on a cruise ship. As Pearl's heart monitor flatlines in reality, her virtual self experiences perfect happiness. This moment is the episode's key revelation, hinting at a profound conspiracy of perception. Brian, whether intentionally or not, manipulates Pearl's dying consciousness, allowing her to exit reality in a state of manufactured bliss. It makes you wonder, if Brian can create such a convincing, comforting illusion for Pearl in her final moments, what other illusions might be at play in the larger Quahog universe? Are the characters themselves, especially during moments of extreme absurdity or tragedy, being shielded or guided by similar, unseen manipulations of their perception? It suggests that reality itself in Quahog might be far more fluid and manipulable than anyone realizes, a construct that can be altered to provide a happy ending, even if it's not truly real. This raises a deeply unsettling question about free will and the authenticity of experience within their world. This quiet manipulation of reality, creating a false but comforting truth, makes us question what else might be a carefully constructed illusion. And these subtle manipulations are only going to grow more complex, especially when we consider the appearance of other superintelligent beings, suggesting that Stewie's unique brilliance might not be so unique after all. Our journey continues with Season 4, Episode 1, North by North Quahog, an episode that throws us headfirst into a whirlwind of meta-narrative loops, celebrity paranoia, and the unsettling idea that certain dramatic events in Quahog might be preordained, or even recycled. The episode opens with Peter and Lois's sex life hitting a rather dull patch, leading Peter to suggest a second honeymoon. But before they can even leave, Peter, engrossed in an Archie comic, crashes their car into a tree. This forces them to stay at a squalid truck stop motel, a seemingly mundane detour that soon plunges them into a bizarre conspiracy. Meanwhile, back home, Brian is left in charge of the kids, a task he struggles with until Stewie, with his characteristic manipulative charm, offers his assistance. This leads Brian and Stewie down a much darker path. After discovering that Chris's school dance chaperone duties mean they must attend, Brian and Stewie, in a shocking display of moral ambiguity, decide to plant cocaine in Jake Tucker's locker to get him arrested. Brian casually mentions having a guy for the drugs, and this guy turns out to be a man with vitiligo who talks about his past as a lawyer, a strange and specific detail that hints at a hidden, almost shadowy network of illicit services within the seemingly innocent town of Quahog. This calculated act of sabotage by Brian and Stewie, usually seen as the more intelligent and, mostly, ethical characters, reveals a chilling capacity for manipulation that goes far beyond simple pranks. Back with Peter and Lois, a news report reveals the opening of the luxurious Park Barrington Hotel, mentioning that Mel Gibson has a permanent, barely used room there. This seemingly innocuous detail sparks an idea in Peter. Disguised as Mel Gibson, Peter and Lois gain access to this secret room. What they discover inside is astonishing. A film reel for Passion of the Christ 2, a ridiculously over-the-top action movie sequel. This raises immediate red flags, right? Why would Mel Gibson have a barely used permanent room? And why would such a controversial, unreleased film be stored there, seemingly unguarded? It suggests a hidden, almost clandestine side to celebrity life in Quahog, a secret project lurking beneath the surface of public knowledge. Peter, deciding to prevent the film's release, steals the reel. This ignites a frantic car chase through a shopping mall, a direct parody of the Blues Brothers, as they are pursued by two of Mel Gibson's priest henchmen. Yes, you heard that right, priest henchmen. This specific detail hints at a deeper, almost cult-like loyalty surrounding Gibson and his projects, suggesting a religious zealotry far beyond mere filmmaking. The chase escalates into a field, where the priests attack from a biplane, echoing the iconic North by Northwest scene, and succeed in kidnapping Lois. Peter receives a ransom note from Gibson, leading him to a truly outlandish location. Gibson's house, built inexplicably atop Mount Rushmore. Can you imagine the resources, the secrecy, required to build a private residence on a national monument? This reveals a profound level of hidden power and influence, suggesting a world where the rich and famous operate with impunity in their own secret lairs. The climax unfolds on the faces of Mount Rushmore, a direct parody of the classic Hitchcock film. Peter tricks Gibson into falling to his death, an act that, despite its cartoonish nature, is strikingly violent. With the immediate threat gone, the excitement of the chase oddly reignites Peter and Lois's passion. But here's where the episode introduces its most unsettling conspiracy, a meta-narrative loop that makes you question the very nature of Quahog's reality. The transcript explicitly states, "This is a repeat of the mall chase scene from earlier," and "This is a repeat of the biplane chase and Lois's kidnapping." And again, a final chase scene unfolds on the faces of Mount Rushmore, again parodying North by Northwest. The episode quite literally repeats entire action sequences, as if the narrative itself is stuck in a loop. Or perhaps these dramatic events are merely templates, reused and reenacted for the amusement of some unseen observer. This deliberate repetition isn't just a gag, it hints show's structure, suggesting that the characters might be living in a simulated or pre-scripted reality, where certain big moments are simply recycled for impact, making their free will an illusion. It makes you wonder how many other events in Quahog's history have been mere reruns, slightly altered, but fundamentally the same. This episode, with its hidden celebrity lairs, shadowy drug networks, and most disturbingly, its literal repetition of dramatic events, paints a picture of a Quahog where reality is fluid, manipulated, and perhaps not as original as it seems. And this idea of manipulated reality becomes even more pronounced when we consider the growing number of Asar, and that a grander, more unsettling plan might be at play. Our journey continues with Season 5, Episode 18, titled Meet the Quagmires, an episode that shatters the illusion of a stable reality, revealing a universe where the very fabric of time can be rewritten with alarming ease, and where personal choices have immediate, catastrophic consequences for the entire timeline. The episode opens in the familiar setting of the Drunken Clam, where Peter is lamenting the perceived monotony of his family life. His dissatisfaction is palpable, almost as if he's unconsciously aware of the repetitive nature of his existence. It's in this moment of emotional vulnerability that he asks Death, who conveniently appears in the bar, for an extraordinary favor: to go back in time. Death, a cosmic entity of immense power, surprisingly agrees without much fuss, transporting Peter and Brian back to the year 1984. This casual willingness of Death to alter the timeline for Peter's personal grievances implies a surprisingly lax cosmic order. Or perhaps Peter is a chosen individual for whom the rules of the universe bend. In 1984, Peter, now 18 years old, is at a country club pool with Brian and Death. He encounters a young, vibrant Lois, but in a moment of youthful folly, he blows her off to hang out with a young Cleveland. This seemingly insignificant choice, made on a whim, becomes the ultimate butterfly effect. Upon returning to the present, Peter wakes up to a completely rewritten reality. He's now married to Molly Ringwald, a meta-joke in itself, and his house is adorned with blue furniture and a 16 candles poster. Lois, to his horror, is married to Quagmire, and their children, Chris and Stewie, grotesquely bear Quagmire's distinctive chin, a physical manifestation of the temporal instability. Even pop culture is altered, with Chevy Chase hosting The Tonight Show and a disturbing version of the Jetsons intro playing on TV, where George Jetson is physically abusive to Jane. This isn't just a personal change, it's a total timeline wipe, affecting not just Peter's life, but the broader cultural landscape and even other fictional universes. The sheer malleability of this reality is the episode's key revelation. Brian, the intellectual, attempts to explain the butterfly effect to a bewildered Peter using a chalkboard, hinting that he might possess a deeper, almost meta-awareness of the narrative's fragile nature. Desperate to restore his original life, Peter and Brian realize they need to summon Death again. In a darkly comedic moment, a woman resembling Daphne from Scooby-Doo falls from a flying car and dies on the sidewalk, bringing Death back into their dimension. Death casually mentions an alternate timeline where Dick Cheney accidentally shot several political figures, implying that temporal shenanigans are not just common, but almost routine within this strange multiverse. Death agrees to send them back to 1984 once more. This time, Peter corrects his mistake, successfully asking young Lois to the dance. As he does so, his past self, the one who had been hanging out with Cleveland, simply disappears, a strange, self-correcting paradox. At the Newport Country Club dance, Peter finds Lois dancing with Quagmire. Brian, who is playing guitar in the band, looks at a photo of the Griffin children, and they begin to fade away, a direct and poignant reference to Back to the Future. This meta-commentary, right there in the narrative, is chilling. It's almost as if the show is winking at the audience, acknowledging its own constructed reality and the fragility of its character's existence. To restore the timeline, Peter punches Quagmire and passionately kisses Lois, an act that magically fixes the temporal paradox. The photo in Brian's hand immediately returns to normal, and the world rights itself. Brian then breaks into an impromptu performance of Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up on a keytar, before the familiar chaos of the giant chicken attacking Peter erupts, a seemingly unshakable constant in Peter's life, regardless of temporal shifts. The episode concludes with the family back in their normal living room, with Lois recounting the bizarre events as if they were a shared, albeit fantastic, experience. Even Roger, the alien from American Dad, makes a cameo, further blurring the lines between different Seth MacFarlane universes, hinting at a shared, perhaps even interconnected, multiverse of animated realities. This episode deeply suggests that the Family Guy timeline is astonishingly unstable, easily rewritten by even a single personal choice. The ease with which reality is altered, and then restored, makes us wonder if Quahog exists in a state of perpetual narrative flux, or if there's a higher power, perhaps the show's creators themselves, subtly manipulating the story for dramatic or comedic effect. It leaves us questioning the authenticity of any given moment, and whether the characters truly have free will in a universe so prone to being reset. This inherent instability of reality makes one wonder if Quahog itself is nothing more than a carefully crafted simulation, a thought that becomes even more compelling when we consider moments where the characters seem to be living in a controlled environment. The inherent instability of reality, as seen in Peter's time-traveling antics. Our journey continues with Season 6, Episode 5, a two-part special titled Lois Kills Stewie. This episode is a monumental turning point, not just for its dramatic plot, but for its shocking meta-revelation that casts a conspiratorial shadow over the entire series. The episode begins with a dire news report, hinting at a major event. We then find Peter and Lois in a courtroom, where Lois is desperately trying to convince Peter that Stewie attempted to murder her. Flashbacks show her being shot by Stewie on a cruise ship, falling into the ocean, and being rescued by a bizarre, reverse merman, a creature with a fish head and human legs. After kicking her rescuer, an amnesiac Lois wanders, eventually finding herself at a summer camp, then a diner where she meets a young man named Derek, who, in a truly bizarre turn, takes her to a white supremacist meeting. It's here, after being punched, that her memory is miraculously restored. Back in the courtroom, Lois finishes her harrowing tale, prompting Joe Swanson to realize, with dawning horror, that Stewie is a homicidal baby. But before anyone can act, Stewie has vanished, disappearing without a trace, leaving a bewildered court in his wake. The scene then shifts to the Griffin home, where Stewie reappears, armed with a gun, holding his family hostage. He forces Peter to admire his macaroni art of an owl, a darkly comedic moment that underscores his childish cruelty. Joe Swanson's attempts to intervene are met with Stewie forcing Brian, at gunpoint, to hurl insults at him. Then, in a truly shocking moment, Cleveland Brown opens the door and is immediately shot by Stewie, falling to the ground. Peter, ever oblivious, tells a crying Lois that Cleveland is now in heaven, and we even see Cleveland at the pearly gates, arguing about a credit card policy. It's a surreal blend of violence and the afterlife, all orchestrated by a baby. Stewie, with Brian as his reluctant hostage, drives away in a Toyota Prius, dragging Cleveland's body behind them. Stewie, ever the megalomaniac, reveals his plan for world domination, recalling a humiliating flashback to his failed American Idol audition, where Simon Cowell famously told him he wanted to shoot him in the face. This is a crucial piece of the puzzle, suggesting Stewie's grand plans might stem from deep-seated insecurity and a desire for validation. Meanwhile, the supposedly tied-up Griffin family, back on the couch, decides to spread a rumor about Rob Schneider. Chris claps his hands together, revealing that they were never actually tied. This small detail is a subtle, unsettling crack in the narrative, a hint that things aren't quite what they seem. Stewie and Brian then crash their car after Stewie's gun accidentally discharges. Back at the Griffin house, Lois discovers a hidden door in Stewie's room, leading to a massive armory. Peter, marveling at the weapons, accidentally activates a device that switches his and Lois's minds, adding another layer of bizarre chaos to the unfolding events. Stewie and Brian, now infiltrating the CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, with cameos from American Dad, characters Stan Smith and Avery Bullock, blurring the lines of the McFarlane-verse, succeed in hacking the world's power grid. Lights flicker off across the globe, including at Tom Cruise's house, where Katie Holmes is humorously freed from a force field. Stewie, now the self-proclaimed president of the world, makes decrees from the Oval Office, including a new law. Anyone who sees Peter Griffin must throw apples at him. The climax arrives as Lois, now a commando, crashes through the Oval Office window, engaging Stewie in an intense, destructive fight. Peter walks into the burning office, finds Lois and Stewie seemingly dead, and delivers a final, triumphant one-liner as he shoots Stewie's body. He stands over Stewie's head in a victory pose, believing the threat is over. But then, the screen freezes. The words, "Simulation over," appear in large green text. The camera pulls back, revealing Stewie in his room, sitting in a VR simulation chair, removing a headset. He calmly explains to Brian that the entire elaborate saga, Lois's supposed murder, her amnesia, Cleveland's death, his world domination, and the climactic battle, was nothing more than a highly detailed, extensive simulation designed to test his plan to kill Lois and take over the world. This revelation is the ultimate conspiracy, shaking the very foundations of the Family Guy universe. It raises profound questions. If Stewie can create such an incredibly realistic and complex simulation, complete with celebrity cameos, intricate subplots, and even an afterlife, how do we know the real Quahog isn't just another, larger simulation? The sheer depth and detail of Stewie's program, running for what would be 2 full episodes, implies a technological capability far beyond what a baby should possess, hinting at an unseen network of resources, or perhaps a pre-programmed destiny for Stewie as a master manipulator of reality. The episode's meta-commentary, with Stewie and Brian discussing the controversial ending of The Sopranos in relation to the simulation, is a deliberate fourth wall break, almost a wink to the audience. It forces us to consider that our entire viewing experience of Family Guy might be a curated, fabricated reality, a narrative loop designed for entertainment. The simulation over message isn't just a plot twist. It's a profound statement about the arbitrary nature of their existence, where even death and world domination can be mere practice runs, making us wonder how many other dramatic events in Quahog have been nothing more than carefully controlled experiments by Stewie, or perhaps by the unseen architects of their animated world. This profound revelation about simulated realities makes us question the very sovereignty of Quahog itself, especially when one of its most prominent citizens decides to declare independence, and the world seems to go along with it. 8. Episode 1, Road to the Multiverse. An episode that blows the lid off the idea of a single, stable reality, confirming a conspiracy of infinite possibilities and the chilling notion that our Quahog is just one of countless variations. The episode kicks off at the Quahog Clam Day Carnival, a seemingly innocent backdrop for the extraordinary. Stewie, with his characteristic blend of genius and absurdity, wins for having the best pig. But this isn't just any pig. It's a massive, muscular beast with fists instead of hooves, which promptly punches Brian. Where does a 1-year-old acquire such a genetically engineered, or perhaps magically enhanced animal? The show doesn't say, hinting at an unseen network of resources at Stewie's disposal, far beyond what any baby should command. It's in his bedroom that Stewie reveals his true masterpiece, a handheld electronic device capable of traversing dimensions. He explains the multiverse theory to a skeptical Brian, then activates the device, enveloping them in crackling electricity before they vanish in a bright flash, leaving a scorch mark on the floor. This device, of unknown origin and construction, is the key to unlocking the episode's central conspiracy: the explicit confirmation of an infinite number of alternate realities. Their journey through the multiverse is a dizzying display of alternate Quahogs, each more bizarre than the last. First, they land in a futuristic city where Christianity never existed, allowing science to advance 1,000 years. Here, Quagmire casually takes NyQuil cold, flu, and AIDS, a darkly comedic commentary on a world without certain moral constraints. Even in this advanced reality, a beautiful Meg is still considered ugly, a cruel, universal constant for her character. Stewie even demonstrates a futuristic bathroom technology by instantly digitizing Brian's poop, a truly strange innovation. They find the Sistine Chapel ceiling adorned with photos of a young Jodie Foster, a bizarre artistic choice attributed to John Hinckley Jr., hinting at the odd cultural shifts in this reality. Next, they jump to a universe animated in the style of the Flintstones, complete with rock puns and Peter using a live frog as a rock phylactic. Then, a Japanese-style universe, where Geisha Meg tragically commits seppuku after Peter insults her, and Peter later devours Lois whole. These rapid shifts aren't just visual gags. They are profound explorations of how a single change in a universal constant can completely reshape identities, cultures, and even the laws of physics. The journey takes a darker turn when they land in a universe where everyone has two heads, including a two-headed Stewie who disconcertingly kisses himself. The device then malfunctions, trapping them in a giant block of ice. Stewie, ever resourceful, manages to make Brian wag his tail hard enough to cut them free. They then jump to a universe where everyone has to poop at the exact same moment, a moment of pure collective discomfort. Perhaps the most unsettling jump is into a classic Disney-style universe, all soft, rounded characters and quaint cottages. Peter sings a cheerful song about pie, joined by various animal-human hybrids. But the innocence shatters when Mort Goldman, depicted as the evil witch from Snow White, offers a poisoned apple. The happy singing characters immediately turn vicious, shouting, "Jew!" and violently attacking him. This moment is a profound and disturbing social commentary, revealing the hidden prejudices that can fester beneath even the most idyllic, seemingly innocent facades. It makes you wonder what other dark truths lurk beneath the surface of seemingly perfect realities. They then rapidly traverse more universes. The stop-motion claymation of Robot Chicken, a clever meta-nod to Seth Green, who voices Chris and works on Robot Chicken. A post-apocalyptic wasteland, a universe where Mayor McCheese was assassinated instead of JFK, and various other strange landscapes, including an endless field of red fire hydrants and a universe of muscular, Speedo-wearing men. They even briefly appear as a live-action photograph of a real dog and baby. Their frantic jumps are momentarily interrupted by a trick in a white void, where they are repeatedly deceived by men carrying paintings of their house, almost as if they are being toyed with by unseen entities. Finally, they appear to land back in their correct universe, but Brian is troubled by a deep sense of unease. He's right to be. This universe is one where dogs are the masters and humans are pets. Brian, seeing a perceived opportunity for a better life, decides he wants to stay, abandoning Stewie. Stewie is heartbroken, but Brian is resolute. In a chilling moment, a dog version of Joe Swanson arrives in a Quahog human control van and captures Stewie. Stewie is rescued from the human pound by a poodle version of himself from this dog-dominated universe, with human Quagmire also caught in the mix. They are chased by a Rottweiler cop, and Poodle Stewie opens a portal, pulling Brian and the original Stewie back to their home universe, with human Quagmire accidentally dragged along. Upon returning to Stewie's bedroom, they confirm they are home when they see the normal Meg and Peter farting in her face. However, Stewie makes a startling realization. There are now two Brians. The human Brian from the dog universe decides to leave and explore the world, walking out the front door. But in a brutal, immediate consequence of tampering with the multiverse, he is instantly hit and killed by a car. This casual, swift death of an alternate version of a main character highlights the inherent dangers and the casual disregard for life that seems to govern the multiverse, almost as if the universe itself is rejecting the anomaly. The Road to the Multiverse episode isn't just a fantastical journey, it's a profound revelation about the Family Guy universe. It confirms that their reality is merely one of an infinite number of variations, and that these variations can be as wildly different as a Stone Age parody or a dog-dominated world. The ease of interdimensional travel, coupled with the immediate and brutal consequences of temporal anomalies, hints at a deeper, more complex cosmic order, or lack thereof. It forces us to question the unique identity of the characters we follow, knowing that countless versions of them exist, and that their lives could be mere simulations or temporary iterations in a grand, cosmic experiment. And this idea of multiple versions of characters existing simultaneously or in different realities, becomes even more unsettling when we consider the appearance of direct clones, hinting at a very specific and perhaps sinister agenda. But what if the manipulation isn't from external forces or alternate timelines, but from within the family itself, orchestrated by the most unlikely and perhaps most terrifying puppet master? Our journey continues with Season 9, Episode 8, New Kidney on the Block, an episode that pulls back the curtain on Stewie's deepest, darkest, and most manipulative desires, revealing a conspiracy of emotional control and a chilling capacity for long-term psychological warfare. The episode begins with Peter developing an extreme addiction to Red Bull. This isn't just a casual habit. It transforms him into a hyperactive, destructive force. We see him pouring Red Bull on his cereal, trying to milk a cow only for Red Bull to spray out, flipping the family couch, and comically shaking Stewie at an alarming speed. His energy reaches its peak when he appears on The Price is Right, spinning the prize wheel with such superhuman strength that it detaches, flies into the audience, and causes a pileup of injured bodies. This absurd escalation of events, fueled by a simple energy drink, highlights Peter's almost childlike susceptibility to external stimuli, a vulnerability that a certain baby will soon exploit. Lois, naturally concerned, intervenes by pouring all the Red Bull down the sink. But in a truly bizarre, unexplained event, the spilled Red Bull lands on a small daisy in the garden, causing it to rapidly grow to a giant size, pull itself out of the ground, and then, inexplicably, steal a car and drive away. This moment, completely out of left field, feels like a strange, localized burst of mutagenic energy, almost as if Quahog's environment itself is unstable, reacting unpredictably to chemicals. Was this a distraction, or just another layer of chaos for Peter to navigate? Peter's bizarre journey takes a darker turn when he drinks a concoction containing kerosene, collapses, and ends up in the hospital. Dr. Hartman delivers the grave news. Peter has complete kidney failure and will die without a transplant. This is a moment of genuine peril for the family. In a display of profound loyalty, Brian, the family dog, steps forward and offers to donate one of his kidneys to Peter, a life-threatening procedure for a canine. The family, relieved and grateful, celebrates Brian's selfless act. However, the true, chilling conspiracy of the episode is then unveiled. Stewie, with a noticeably dark complexion and a serious demeanor, confronts Brian at a playground at night. In a shocking confession, Stewie reveals that he was the mastermind behind Peter's kidney failure. He admits to secretly giving Peter the Red Bull, knowing it would lead to his severe illness, and then forcing Peter to drink the kerosene, all with one goal: to manipulate Brian into donating a kidney. Stewie's motive? A twisted, possessive love for Brian. He confesses, with tears and snot running down his face, that he orchestrated Peter's near-death experience purely to ensure Brian's continued existence and health for his own sake. This is a rare, raw display of Stewie's emotional depth, but it's fused with an utterly ruthless, Machiavellian intellect. The scene then cuts to the operating room, where Peter and Brian are on adjacent gurneys. Dr. Hartman, ready to perform the transplant, is in a hospital gown alongside the family. But just as the surgery is about to begin, Brian wakes up and realizes he's not tied down. He swiftly escapes the gurney, much to the family's delight, who celebrate his freedom. This unexpected escape, after Stewie's elaborate plan, leaves us with a lingering question. Was Brian's escape a genuine stroke of luck? Or did Stewie, in a moment of conflicted love and genuine tears, subtly allow for his escape? Perhaps his tears were not just of confession, but of genuine distress at the thought of Brian undergoing such a dangerous procedure, leading to a last-minute, subconscious sabotage of his own perfect plan. The episode ends with a rather random subplot. Chris and Meg read a plagiarized essay about hope at a high school event, only for Barack Obama to appear in an Elvis-style jumpsuit and perform a rock song, causing a frenzy. This feels like a deliberate narrative distraction, a moment of pure, unadulterated absurdity to lighten the heavy emotional weight of Stewie's dark revelation. This episode is a deep dive into the psychological horror of Stewie's genius. It reveals a baby capable of orchestrating complex, long-term schemes involving poisoning and manipulation, all driven by a possessive, almost terrifying form of love. It makes us question the true nature of Stewie's affections and the profound fragility of the other characters' lives when they are merely pawns in his elaborate emotional games. This level of calculated evil, hidden beneath a baby's facade, is truly unsettling. The idea that Stewie would actively harm one family member to benefit another, all for his own emotional satisfaction, paints a picture of a household under constant, unseen threat. And this theme of hidden, complex identities and sinister origins only deepens when we consider the appearance of Stewie's direct clones, suggesting that his, Chapter 9. But what if the very memories of the characters themselves are subject to manipulation, hinting at an even deeper, more insidious conspiracy? Our journey continues with Season 10, Episode 17, Forget Me Not, an episode that plunges us into a disorienting narrative of collective amnesia, revealing a chilling conspiracy where the memories and identities of the main characters can be completely wiped and then painstakingly reconstructed, almost as if they are subjects in a grand experiment. The episode begins with Peter, Brian, Joe, and Quagmire at the Quahog laser tag facility. Peter, with his usual chaotic energy, wins a game by appearing in impossible locations and shooting everyone, even himself, and then proudly hangs a framed fake newspaper article on the wall that reads, "Peter Griffin eliminates enemies and destroys world." This seemingly innocuous detail, a newspaper headline declaring Peter a world destroyer, becomes a crucial piece of foreshadowing for the mind-bending events that follow. Later that night, as Peter and Brian drive home, they are confronted by a blindingly bright light on the road. They all scream as the screen whites out, a jarring visual cue that signals a profound shift in their reality. Peter wakes up in an empty hospital room, wearing a gown, with no memory of who he is or how he got there. He soon encounters Quagmire, Joe, and Brian, all in hospital gowns, all suffering from complete amnesia. They look out a window to see the entire town deserted, a ghost town devoid of life. This immediate, collective memory wipe, coupled with the unexplained desertion of Quahog, screams of a deliberate, external intervention. Who or what could have caused such a precise, widespread memory loss and evacuated an entire town? The four friends, now in their regular clothes, wander through the deserted streets, desperately trying to piece together their identities. This leads to a series of comical cutaway gags, as they mistakenly believe they are characters from other TV shows, like Quagmire thinking he's Shirt Pants, or Peter believing his name is Earl. These fleeting false memories highlight the fragility of their identities without their true pasts. Their journey of self-discovery continues as they find their crashed red station wagon. Brian, with his heightened canine senses, smells their scents in the car. Joe then finds the car's registration, which contains Peter's name and address. This clue leads them to Peter's house, where Brian, sniffing the lawn, realizes he regularly poops there, leading them to Quagmire's mailbox. Inside Quagmire's house, they discover his true identity and, to Brian's shock, that he is Quagmire's dog in this new amnesiac reality. Joe, too, finds his own house and discovers he is a police officer and a stripper, adding another layer of bizarre revelation. These discoveries are not just about personal identity. They are about their relationships, their social roles, and the very fabric of their interconnected lives. With their memories seemingly restored, they return to Peter's living room. However, Joe and Quagmire notice the framed newspaper article Peter had hung earlier, the one declaring, Peter Griffin eliminates enemies and destroys world. Suddenly, believing Peter to be an evil alien, they arm themselves with shotguns and confront him. Brian, in a moment of profound loyalty, jumps in front of Peter to protect him and is tragically shot. Peter kneels and cries over Brian's body, a deeply emotional scene that feels genuinely tragic. But then, the screen flashes. Brian jolts awake. He is sitting on a cot with wires attached to his head, in a room with Stewie. The entire disorienting narrative of amnesia, deserted towns, identity crises, and Brian's death was yet another elaborate simulation created by Stewie. He calmly explains that he designed this intense, emotionally charged scenario to test Brian's friendship with Peter. Stewie even shows Brian monitors displaying other simulations, including one where Lois, Meg, and a woman resembling Bonnie are fighting in a hospital room, hinting at a vast, unseen network of these fabricated realities. This episode's revelation is a chilling conspiracy. It's not just that Stewie is capable of creating simulations, it's the sheer purpose and scale of them. He can craft entire, emotionally resonant realities, complete with false memories, altered identities, and life or death stakes, purely to test a social bond. This level of psychological manipulation, on such a grand scale, suggests a being with godlike control over perception and experience. It makes us question if any of the characters' memories are truly their own, or if they too are subject to Stewie's, or some other entity's, constant subtle alterations. The Forget-Me-Not simulation implies a universe where personal history is not fixed, but a malleable narrative, making us wonder how many other real. If entire timelines can be reset, and memories can be wiped, then what does it truly mean to exist in Quahog? And this question of existence and the fragility of life becomes profoundly real when one of the main characters faces a shocking and seemingly permanent death. 12. Episode 6. Life of Brian, an episode that dared to challenge the very concept of character permanence, leading to a profound conspiracy about the fragility of life, the malleability of time, and the unsettling implications of a universe where even the most beloved characters can be abruptly removed, only to be replaced. The episode opens in a whirlwind of unexplained action, with Brian and Stewie on the run from Native Americans in a jeep, then cornered on a bridge, forcing them to leap into the water. They emerge into a bizarre alternate reality, a Native American-dominated Quahog, where the city is populated entirely by indigenous people, and white men are panhandling. This immediate plunge into an alternate timeline, without a clear explanation of how they got there, hints at Stewie's casual, almost reckless use of his time travel device. His previous flashback of whispering to Judas at the Last Supper further underscores his long history of temporal meddling, subtly altering historical events for unknown reasons. The central conflict arises when Stewie's time machine's return pad is broken, trapping them in this alternate reality. They eventually discover a wooden, Native American-style time machine in this universe's Stewie's room. Using it, they travel back to a past event where Stewie had been giving guns to Native Americans. In a decisive act, present Stewie takes the guns back, effectively undoing his past mistake and restoring their original timeline. This casual, almost effortless act of rewriting history is a profound conspiracy in itself. It demonstrates that the Family Guy universe's timeline is not a fixed, immutable construct, but a fluid narrative, subject to the whims of a one-year-old with a toy. And this brings us to the most unsettling conspiracy of all, the origin of Stewie's time machine. After returning to their proper timeline, Stewie, with surprising finality, dismantles and destroys his time machine, throwing it into a junkyard crusher. Brian is devastated. But here's the crucial detail. Stewie explicitly states he bought the time machine at a toy store during Christmas. Think about that. A fully functional, time-traveling device, capable of altering global history, was available for purchase at a regular toy store. This isn't a complex invention of Stewie's genius. It's a mass-produced item. This implies a hidden, advanced civilization or organization capable of creating such technology, casually distributing it, perhaps as a test, or as a way to observe the chaos it creates. It suggests a much larger, unseen conspiracy operating behind the scenes of Quahog, subtly influencing events through seemingly innocuous means. The episode then takes a truly shocking turn. While playing street hockey with a net they found at the junkyard, a speeding car suddenly, brutally, hits and kills Brian. The family rushes out to find him mangled and bleeding in the street, and in a moment of darkly comedic cruelty, a squirrel even runs up and kicks his dead body. The family is utterly devastated. Stewie, in particular, is heartbroken, breaking his hockey stick and desperately trying to acquire a replacement part for his now destroyed time machine from a kebab stand owner, Yusef, to no avail. Brian's funeral is a somber affair, attended by many Quahog residents, a rare moment of genuine grief in the series. Peter delivers a eulogy, crying openly, and Stewie drops a rose into the open grave, his tears a testament to his profound love for Brian. But despite this outpouring of emotion and the existence of a time machine that could have saved him, Brian remains dead. This raises a chilling conspiracy. Was Brian's death a fixed point, an unchangeable event in the timeline, despite Stewie's powers? Or was it a deliberate narrative choice by some unseen force, a reset for the character, designed to introduce a new dynamic to the family? The casualness of the car hitting him and Stewie's inexplicable inability to rebuild or replace the time machine to save him feels less like a random accident and more like a preordained narrative event. The family eventually gets a new dog, Vinny, an Italian-American dog who quickly ingratiates himself. Stewie, initially resentful, tries to prank Vinny. However, in a moment of raw vulnerability, Stewie confesses to Vinny that he misses Brian, leading to a comforting hug and the beginning of a new friendship. This emotional arc, forced by Brian's death, hints at a deeper, almost psychological manipulation of Stewie's character by the narrative itself, pushing him towards new emotional experiences. The episode ends with a final, enigmatic moment. As Lois puts Stewie to bed with Vinny, a mysterious witch appears in the doorway. This unexplained appearance, without context or resolution, is a classic conspiracy trope. Is she an observer of the timeline, a guardian of cosmic laws, or simply another random supernatural anomaly that occasionally surfaces in the bizarre world of Quahog, hinting at unseen forces that occasionally glimpse into the lives of the Griffins? Life of Brian is a profound conspiracy because it confirms the existence of mass-produced time travel, the casual rewriting of history, and the shocking, almost arbitrary, death of a major character. It leaves us questioning the true nature of free will in Quahog, the stability of their reality, and the existence of unseen forces that dictate character fates. This profound questioning of who lives and who dies, and the ease with which life can be taken and given back, becomes even more central when we consider another character's journey to the afterlife and back. But what if the afterlife itself is just another temporary state, a narrative detour before an inevitable, convenient return to the status quo, hinting at a universe that resists true, lasting change? Our journey continues with Season 13, Episode 14, Roasted Guy, an episode that, beneath its comedic surface, delves into the unsettling conspiracy of character development as a temporary narrative tool, revealing a universe that resists true emotional growth and often resets its inhabitants to their default states. The episode kicks off with Peter's predictable susceptibility to advertising. A billboard announcing "McRib is back" sends him into a frenzy. He abandons his friends at the Drunken Clam, speeds home, and excitedly gathers his family for a McRib run. This seemingly trivial event subtly hints at a larger conspiracy of consumerism, where Peter's behavior is easily manipulated by external stimuli, almost as if he's programmed to react to these commercial triggers. Is the McRib's cyclical return a deliberate narrative device to ensure Peter's continued, predictable chaos? Later, Peter and his friends are arguing in front of an old Zesto pudding billboard. To prove a point, Peter climbs the billboard, falls into the giant pudding, and miraculously discovers a missing child, the Nicholson kid, who has apparently been alive and hidden inside the billboard for an unknown duration. This defies all logic. How could a child survive, unseen, in a giant pudding ad? His discovery by Peter, right after a mundane argument, feels too convenient, almost as if the missing child was a prop, waiting for Peter to fulfill his role as hero. This bizarre, almost magical appearance of a long-lost child hints at the universe itself, providing convenient plot points, rather than adhering to any real-world plausibility. Peter is hailed as a hero, receiving a giant key to the city from Mayor West. This moment of fleeting glory, however, triggers a profound existential crisis in Joe Swanson. Feeling utterly worthless in comparison to Peter's accidental heroism, Joe quits his job, leaves his wife Bonnie, and embarks on a severe, manic episode, repeatedly attempting suicide at Niagara Falls. This disproportionate reaction, triggered by Peter's momentary fame, feels less like a genuine psychological break and more like a narrative device to explore themes of purpose and self-worth. The repeated suicide attempts and Peter and his friends' equally repeated slapstick rescues create a loop, almost as if Joe is trapped in a narrative experiment, constantly tested by his friends. During this period of crisis, a cutaway gag shows Peter's bizarre funeral, where he is buried in a giant potato. This fleeting, dreamlike vision of Peter's death, completely detached from the main plot, is a subtle conspiracy in itself. Is it a premonition of a future event? A glimpse into an alternate reality where Peter actually dies? Or is it just another example of the show's casual disregard for linear narrative, hinting that Peter's death is just another temporary state in a malleable reality, easily discarded once its comedic or thematic purpose is served? The climax of Joe's crisis occurs in a precarious cable car situation over Niagara Falls, where he and his friends are dangling precariously. Joe, using his wheelchair as a zipline, heroically saves them all. This act of self-redemption, after a series of dark and often comedic suicide attempts, provides him with a renewed sense of purpose. He realizes he has found his meaning again and decides to return to his family and his job. However, the complete and sudden resolution of Joe's severe mental health crisis after such extreme suicidal ideation is highly unrealistic. It feels like a narrative reset, a convenient return to the status quo, rather than a genuine, lasting resolution to deep psychological issues. This reinforces the conspiracy that character development in Quahog is often superficial, designed to serve a temporary plot, with characters quickly snapping back to their default settings once the dramatic arc is complete. It's as if the universe cannot sustain profound emotional arcs for long, preferring instead to reset its inhabitants to their familiar roles. The episode concludes with the friends singing together, a moment of restored camaraderie, until Peter abruptly starts singing Barbie Girl, causing Quagmire to run away in disgust. This final, absurd interruption of a moment of genuine friendship and resolution highlights the inherent chaos and lack of true sentimentality in Quahog. Even moments of emotional connection are quickly undermined by Peter's unpredictable, almost anti-narrative behavior. It's as if the universe simply cannot allow for sustained emotional depth or genuine, lasting change. Roasted Guy reveals a deeply unsettling conspiracy that the emotional journeys of Quahog's residents are often temporary narrative devices, and that the universe itself works to ensure characters return to their pre-assigned roles, resisting any profound or permanent transformation. The idea of characters being trapped in these narrative loops, or forced into situations that test their limits, takes on a literal meaning in our next chapter, where they find themselves confined to a very strange and unsettling journey. Our journey continues with Season 14, Episode 10, titled Candy, Quahog, and a Caboose, an episode that traps our characters in a peculiar, almost purgatorial journey, raising questions about control and the nature of their reality. The episode opens with Peter, Cleveland, and Joe at Quagmire's house, sifting through boxes of his dad-mom's hand-me-downs. Among the clothes, they discover a stack of old VHS tapes, a Korean soap opera titled Winter Summer, which Quagmire starred in as American Johnny. He admits he never understood his lines, having only learned them phonetically, even inadvertently recording a pro-genital mutilation PSA that he now regrets. This immediately establishes Quagmire's past as a malleable performer, doing things without understanding the full implications, almost like a puppet, hinting at the idea of characters being unaware of the larger context of their actions within the show. The friends quickly become completely obsessed with the soap opera, binge-watching it with an intensity that Peter compares to his dedication to the Shawshank Redemption. However, their marathon viewing is abruptly halted when they discover the last tape is missing, never having aired outside Korea and unavailable online. This sudden, almost artificial, narrative roadblock creates an immediate quest. Peter, with his usual chaotic logic, suggests they simply go to Korea to find the final episode, a journey they embark on with surprising ease. It's almost as if the universe itself wants them to go to Korea, setting up this elaborate scavenger hunt. Peter, ever the master of avoiding responsibility, even reveals his trick for dealing with work calls, holding the phone up to any episode of Who's the Boss. This meta-commentary highlights the artificiality of his responsibilities and how easily he can maintain his life through deception, hinting at a reality that doesn't demand much accountability from its characters. Their trip to Korea is a whirlwind of surreal experiences. Quagmire, as American Johnny, is a massive celebrity, mobbed by adoring fans at the airport. The hotel concierge offers bizarre amenities like smoking or chain-smoking rooms and a presidential suite with a toilet that goes yum 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 yum. Peter, eager to fit in, even undergoes plastic surgery to get large, green, anime-style eyes, again showing a superficial change for external validation. This exaggerated fame and the bizarre cultural quirks of Korea suggest a world where the rules of reality are warped for specific individuals, almost like a reward for playing their part in a grand, unseen show. Quagmire is reunited with his former co-star, Soojin, Hee-sun from the show, and his old cat Buttercup, who, in a truly bizarre turn, has had kittens, making Quagmire a grandfather. Soojin's family tradition means a sudden, overwhelming influx of relatives, including a transparent great-grandma ghost, who move into her home. This sudden, overwhelming family dynamic is the catalyst for Quagmire's crucial decision. After watching the final episode of Winter Summer, in which American Johnny leaves his Korean family to return to his sad, pathetic bachelor life in America, Quagmire has an epiphany. He declares he won't make the same mistake. He's staying in Korea with Soojin, Buttercup, and their grandcats, finally having the family he never had in Quahog. This is a moment of genuine character development, a break from his established, irresponsible role. But Peter, Cleveland, and Joe cannot accept this. They decide they need to get through to a Korean through their music. What follows is a long, elaborate K-pop style music video featuring Peter, Cleveland, and Joe singing and dancing in various colorful outfits and surreal settings, imploring Quagmire to come home to Quahog. This is a deliberate, highly artificial intervention designed to force a character back into his assigned role. The success of their K-pop song and the fact that even the great-grandma ghost finally died and became a ghost because she was so happy to be in the K-pop song are absurd, almost magical elements that bend reality to serve the narrative's emotional beats, ensuring Quagmire's return. Overwhelmed by the sudden influx of Soojin's relatives, the room literally fills with dozens of sleeping family members, including the mysterious ghost. Quagmire quickly changes his mind. He decides to return to Quahog, stating, I thought I wanted a family, but I love having no responsibilities here. I can get drunk whenever, sleep with anyone, and just hide in my house and avoid the world if I feel like it. Peter's final, seemingly innocent comment, "Wow, that's great," and totally doesn't sound like symptoms of clinical depression, adds a layer of dark meta-commentary, acknowledging the underlying tragedy of Quagmire's arrested development. Yet, it remains unaddressed, reinforcing the cycle. This episode suggests a profound conspiracy of character stasis. Quagmire's brief moment of genuine emotional growth and desire for a family is actively undone by the narrative. The K-pop video, the sudden swarm of relatives, and the absurd happy ghost all work in tandem to prevent Quagmire from permanently changing. It highlights the idea that the Family Guy universe might be a form of purgatory, or a controlled narrative where characters are destined to repeat their core traits and storylines, unable to escape their pre-written roles. This resistance to lasting change, where characters are almost compelled to return to their core identities, makes one ponder if Brian's recurring existential crises are a subtle, subconscious awareness of his own unchanging, predetermined existence. The casual rewriting of history and the arbitrary fate of characters raise profound questions about free will and predestination. But what if one of the characters is subtly aware of this programmed existence, leading to a recurring pattern of self-sabotage and existential dread? Our journey continues with Season 15, Episode 3, American Gigolo, an episode that dives deep into Brian's recurring existential crises and self-destructive tendencies, hinting at a profound, unsettling conspiracy that his advanced intellect makes him subtly aware of his own fictional existence, leading him to sabotage his own life in a desperate, subconscious attempt to break free from his predetermined narrative. The episode opens with Quagmire, a pilot, on strike with his fellow pilots at Quahog International Airport. This strike leads him into an unexpected new profession. Checking his phone calendar, which comically lists picketing 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and scumbag stuff 9 p.m. to midnight, Quagmire decides to engage in scumbag stuff earlier than usual. He enters a bar and, in a surprising turn of events, ends up stripping for a bachelorette party, receiving money from the women. This initial foray into stripping, driven by boredom and a need for income during the strike, sets him on a path that Peter will soon exploit. Meanwhile, Brian is working at Mega Hardware, a seemingly mundane job. However, his discontent is palpable. He's seen helping customers, but his boss yells at him, and he stands angrily in a hallway before chasing a bluebird into an employees-only door. This small, seemingly insignificant detail hints at Brian's underlying frustrations and his desire to escape the mundane, almost as if he's searching for a deeper meaning or an exit from his current reality. Peter, ever the opportunist, discovers Quagmire's new profession and, after retrieving money from a non-paying client, decides to become Quagmire's pimp. What follows is a long, elaborate montage set to "Working for a Livin'" by Huey Lewis and the News, showing Peter getting a makeover and managing Quagmire's clients. This bizarre partnership, with Peter embracing the role of a pimp with alarming enthusiasm, highlights his moral flexibility and his capacity for exploiting others for personal gain, even his friends. It also shows a world where such a profession can be openly practiced, with Peter even taking Quagmire to the drunken clam in full pimp attire. Here's where the deeper conspiracy regarding Brian begins. Malice hires 3 men to help him get Brian fired from Mega Hardware. They brainstorm various schemes, eventually settling on a plan that involves a soda can exploding in Brian's boss's face, making it look like Brian was responsible. The plan works, and Brian's boss yells, "Griffin, you're fired!" Stewie's motivation for getting Brian fired is complex, but it consistently leads to Brian's downward spiral. Brian confronts Stewie, who, in a classic Stewie move, goes limp when Brian tries to pick him up, causing Brian to drop him and rupture his hernia. Stewie then performs impromptu surgery on Brian, stapling the wound shut, a scene that is both grotesque and a testament to Stewie's medical genius. The culmination of this episode's conspiracy lies in Brian's recurring pattern of self-sabotage, often orchestrated or exacerbated by Stewie. Brian loses his job, suffers a painful injury, and is left adrift. This isn't an isolated incident. Throughout the series, Brian consistently faces existential crises, job losses, and relationship failures. The theory here is that Brian, with his unusually high intelligence and self-awareness for a dog in a cartoon, subconsciously understands the cyclical, unchanging nature of his existence within the Family Guy narrative. He's trapped in a loop, destined to remain a talking dog, a struggling writer, an unfulfilled intellectual. His self-destructive tendencies, his alcoholism, his poor choices, his often cynical outlook, are not just character flaws. They are subconscious attempts to disrupt his predetermined narrative, to force a change, to break free from the invisible chains of his fictional world. And Stewie, in his own twisted way, often facilitates this, perhaps because he, too, is aware of their programmed existence, or because he enjoys manipulating the characters around him as if they are pieces in his own grand game. The deliberate act of getting Brian fired and then causing his injury can be seen as Stewie playing into this cycle, or perhaps, in a darker interpretation, actively trying to keep Brian from achieving any lasting success that might disrupt the established order of the show. The episode ends with Peter and Quagmire's pimping adventure concluding, with Peter finally admitting he got carried away, and Quagmire forgiving him. Peter then reveals that the pilot strike ended a month ago, a detail he conveniently withheld, further highlighting his manipulative nature. The family, back in the living room, discusses the absurd events, and Stewie offers Brian a can of Pawtucket Patriot Ale, which, predictably, explodes in Brian's face, with the hired men outside giving a thumbs up. This final act of orchestrated misfortune for Brian reinforces the idea that he is perpetually targeted by either external forces or Stewie's machinations, destined to remain in a state of comedic struggle. American Gigolo suggests that Brian's recurring failures and existential angst are not just comedic devices, but a subtle, tragic acknowledgement of his own programmed reality. His advanced intellect might be a curse, making him just aware enough to chafe against the confines of his fictional life, leading to a continuous cycle of self-sabotage, perhaps in a desperate, subconscious plea for genuine change. And this theme of predetermined success, or lack thereof, takes on a new dimension when we consider Brian's sudden, inexplicable triumph in the world of high finance, born and only to lose it all in a morally compromising twist. Our journey continues with Season 16, Episode 15, The Wolf of Wall Street, an episode that delves into a chilling conspiracy of engineered success and moral corruption, suggesting that Brian's sudden rise and fall in the stock market was not merely coincidental, but a deliberate test or manipulation of his character by unseen forces. The episode opens with Stewie's room mysteriously filled with over a dozen coin-operated rocking horses, an extravagant purchase he claims to fund by investing in the stock market. This immediate display of unexplained wealth acquired by a baby sets an unusual tone. Brian, ever the cynical intellectual, dismisses the stock market as a rigged game. However, in a meta-commentary that breaks the fourth wall, the camera pans to reveal Brian reading his lines from a teleprompter, which then malfunctions. Brian improvises, and a director in a control room, impressed, declares, "That's why he's the best." This self-referential moment hints at the artificiality of their world, where even character dialogue is scripted, making Brian's subsequent success in a rigged game all the more suspicious. Peter, meanwhile, is determined to watch a UFC fight, leading him to bargain with Lois and promise to attend Meg's ballet recital, a promise he, predictably, breaks. This, along with his friend's attempts to run the Drunken Clam in Jerome's absence, reveals Peter's consistent pattern of avoiding responsibility and engaging in chaotic schemes, almost as if he's destined to create these mini-dramas. The central conspiracy begins when Brian rear-ends Consuela's tan sedan. To pay for the repairs, Stewie offers to invest $100 of Brian's money in the stock market. Brian reluctantly agrees, setting the stage for his improbable success. Stewie, a baby, not only possesses the knowledge, but also the seemingly infallible intuition to turn $100 into $2,000, and then rapidly increase their portfolio by 30%. This isn't just genius, it's almost supernatural. This raises a profound question. How does Stewie, a 1-year-old, consistently possess such advanced financial acumen? Is he receiving inside information? Is he connected to a larger, unseen network that manipulates the market? Or is he perhaps an avatar for some higher intelligence, subtly steering events for his own amusement or an unknown purpose? Stewie agrees to teach Brian how to invest, but only if Brian teaches him Gunkata, a fictional martial art from the movie Equilibrium. This leads to a bizarre cutaway of Stewie in a red leotard, performing acrobatic, gun-fu-style moves to defeat ninjas in a mountain fortress, a display of physical prowess that, again, defies his age. This juxtaposition of high finance and absurd martial arts suggests a world where extreme abilities are not limited by conventional logic. As Brian's wealth grows, he becomes increasingly obsessed and morally compromised. He initially considers donating half his profits to charity, but then takes the money back, directly leading to a cutaway of a doctor telling a bald child that he is $1 short for life-saving surgery, as Brian and Stewie speed by in a red Ferrari. This immediate, visual consequence of Brian's greed is stark and deliberate, almost as if the universe is testing his morality. The moral descent culminates when Brian and Stewie discover that the Korean protein shake company they invested in makes its product from dog meat. Horrified, Brian attempts to rescue the caged dogs, but he is captured. Stewie, in his red Gunkata leotard, rescues him, defeating the guards with acrobatic moves. Stewie then delivers a powerful speech, telling Brian that the experience taught him a lesson about his greed, not Wall Street, concluding with their animated selves inserted into the "Life is a Highway" music video. However, the conspiracy deepens. Brian, despite the horrific discovery and Stewie's lecture, is still considering investing in the dog meat company. He becomes a monster of greed, prompting a meta-intervention from Sesame Street monsters who object to the term. Stewie, frustrated, vents to his teddy bear, Rupert, who is ominously hanging from a noose. Brian is then recaptured by the factory, destined for execution, only for Stewie to rescue him again, emphasizing that money doesn't buy happiness. This, saving Brian, does. The repeated cycle of Brian's moral failing, his capture, and Stewie's rescue is not just a plot device. It's a profound conspiracy. It suggests that Brian's entire journey was an orchestrated morality play, designed by Stewie, or a higher narrative power, to teach him a lesson. Brian's inability to truly learn, his persistent greed even after facing the horrific truth, implies a predetermined character flaw that he cannot escape. His success in the stock market was a setup, a trap to test his ethics. Stewie, with his godlike control over simulations and his deep understanding of human and canine psychology, appears to be the architect of this moral experiment, constantly pushing Brian to confront his flaws, yet never allowing him to fully escape them. The Wolf of Wall Street reveals a chilling conspiracy. Brian's financial success and moral downfall were not random, but part of an engineered scenario, possibly by Stewie, to test and manipulate his character. It implies that Brian is trapped in a series of predetermined lessons, unable to truly break free from his inherent flaws, raising questions about free will and the ultimate purpose. And this idea of characters being subtly guided or even controlled extends beyond the family, touching upon the surprising, almost mystical, connections within the animal kingdom of Quahog. Our journey continues with Season 17, Episode 5, titled Palomino, an episode that, beneath its absurd premise, hints at a profound conspiracy regarding the nature of connections, the power of narrative, and the unsettling idea that certain relationships in Quahog might be preordained or serve a deeper, almost mystical purpose. The episode opens with Lois's birthday party, where Peter's usual crude jokes and forgotten cake set a chaotic tone. A pony ride, mistakenly ordered by Peter, becomes a distraction as he gleefully rides the animal, ignoring Lois's concerns. This typical Peter behavior, characterized by self-indulgence and a disregard for others' feelings, highlights his consistent role in creating comedic chaos. Later, Lois's father, Carter Pewterschmidt, arrives, having missed the party. He offers a mumble-kiss apology and a strange gift, a silver revolver. Lois, appalled by the gun, tries to return it, leading to an argument where Carter dismisses her concerns about gun safety with references to Kids in the Hall sketches. This gift, and Lois's desperate attempts to get rid of it, become the central catalyst for the episode's main events. The casualness with which Carter gives a handgun as a gift, and the bizarre comedy references he uses to deflect, hints at a deeper, almost detached, understanding of reality, as if he's aware of the comedic tropes they inhabit. Peter, meanwhile, is attempting to find a stand-up special on Netflix, which leads to a meta-joke about everyone getting a special. This moment, where Peter is literally on a stage, set to look like his living room, delivering bland jokes, is a profound fourth-wall break. It suggests that the characters are aware of the production of their own show, or at least that their lives are being watched and curated for an audience. Everyone gets a special could be a commentary on the contrived nature of celebrity and the manufactured narratives of their world. The gun, hidden by Lois, is quickly found by Peter, who accidentally shoots Chris, then covers it up. This immediate, dark consequence of the gun's presence underscores the danger, but the casual "Chris is a silhouette" joke that follows, where Chris is depicted as a target with circles on his head and torso, trivializes the violence, almost as if death itself is not permanent in this world. Peter then uses the gun to force a judge on The Voice to turn around for Chris, further showcasing his reckless use of the weapon. Lois, finally exasperated, decides to return the gun to Carter. Here's where the deeper conspiracy unfolds. During a struggle over the gun, it accidentally discharges, shooting Carter in the head. Lois is horrified, but in a bizarre meta-commentary, she immediately notes the dramatic camera work. They haven't done an overhead crane shot yet, and then, oh God, there it is, followed by sad piano notes signifying his spirit leaving his body, only for a parrot to squawk, "Family Guy, we'll be right back." This sequence is a profound, almost aggressive breaking of the fourth wall. It suggests that the characters are not only aware of their fictional existence, but also of the narrative conventions and production techniques of their own show. Lois's father's death is treated as a narrative beat, a dramatic device that is openly acknowledged as such. Carter, miraculously, survives, albeit in a catatonic state with severe head trauma. Lois, guilt-ridden, decides to bring him home to care for him. This act of familial responsibility, however, is quickly subverted by Peter's usual antics and the family's reluctance. Peter, in a flashback, even compares himself to Christina Hendricks's bra on Mad Men, further blurring the lines between their fictional lives and other TV shows. The central conspiracy revolves around Carter's miraculous recovery. Lois, in an attempt to jog his memory, shows him pictures of actors, which he cannot recognize. But when she threatens to watch Real Housewives instead of NCIS, Carter suddenly snaps out of his catatonic state, declaring, "No, the show itself is bad enough. We don't need another show explaining what we just saw." This is the ultimate meta-commentary, a character recovering from severe brain trauma solely to object to reality television. His recovery is not a medical miracle, but a narrative convenience, a literal plot device to bring him back to his sharp, critical self, but perhaps too sharp. Carter, now restored, begins a period of genuine bonding with Lois, playing piano and singing together. He even decides to retire from Pewterschmidt Industries and give all his money to charity, a radical departure from his cutthroat capitalist persona. This moment of genuine character growth and moral transformation is profound, a rare instance of a Family Guy character truly changing for the better. However, Peter, furious at the loss of his inheritance, becomes determined to make Carter mean again. His attempts are hilariously absurd, involving suggestions like hiring a prostitute or mixing up Play-Doh colors. He even suggests turning Carter into one of my kids, which leads to him crying and walking upstairs, a bizarre moment of self-pity and meta-commentary on his own children. The climax arrives during another heartfelt piano and singing session between Lois and Carter. As they sing the theme to Hill Street Blues, Carter is suddenly shot in the head again. This time, the shooter is Barbara Pewterschmidt, Lois's mother, who, holding a smoking gun, declares, "Who told Carter he could give away our bleeped money?" Carter, once again, miraculously wakes up in the hospital, but this time he's back to his old, mean, cutthroat self with no memory of his transformation. Peter, observing this, notes, "Ah, the gunshot changed him back." Lois, accepting this bizarre reality, states, "Well, I guess it was nice to have time with Daddy while I could." And, "Peter, I'm glad you finally realized family is more important than money." Peter, however, counters with the cynical, "Me too, Lois, and I think we all learned a valuable lesson about firearms." Lois then replies, "That's right, Peter. Guns create problems, but they solve them too." This episode is a profound conspiracy about narrative control and character destiny. Carter's transformation and subsequent reset by a second gunshot, orchestrated by Barbara, is a blatant example of the show's resistance to lasting character change. It implies that the characters are trapped in their archetypes, unable to truly evolve beyond their pre-programmed roles. His recovery is not about medical science, but about a narrative necessity to maintain the status quo and the comedic dynamic. The guns, rather than being instruments of permanent harm, act as narrative reset buttons, conveniently bringing characters back to their default settings. This constant, almost cynical manipulation of character arcs and consequences makes us question how much genuine free will any character possesses, and if their lives are simply a series of predetermined events designed to maintain the show's comedic formula. This unsettling sense of preordained roles and hidden depths extends to even the most unexpected corners of Quahog, especially when we consider a character's mastery of deception and the unsettling ease with which they can manipulate perceptions. Even their own families. Our journey continues with Season 19, Episode 6, The Talented Mr. Stewie, an episode that unveils a profound conspiracy of identity manipulation, revealing Stewie's chilling he can construct and maintain elaborate fake personas, not just for himself, but for others too. The episode kicks off with Meg's perennial struggle for acceptance. At Adam West High School, during an assembly about the fall dance's climate change theme, which involves flooding the gym and cranking up the heat, an absurd and dangerous concept for a school event. Meg's friends dismiss her, leading a school janitor to tragically drown himself in his mop bucket after overhearing their cruel remarks. This darkly comedic suicide, triggered by Meg's social plight, sets a rather grim yet typical tone for the arbitrary suffering in Quahog. Meanwhile, at the Drunken Clam, Peter and his friends are subjected to Magic Night, featuring a magician named Sebastian, whose way too close-up magic sets Peter's head on fire. Peter, however, is more impressed by Sebastian's vest, which he adopts as a new look and persona, declaring himself a failed actor teaching acting. This leads to a series of absurd cutaway gags, including Peter as a voluptuous woman captivating his male co-workers. Peter's constant search for new identities and his ability to embody them, however briefly, hints at a deeper, almost chaotic, fluidity of self in Quahog. The central conspiracy truly begins when Peter, during a concert, gets his new, ridiculously long wallet chain tangled with other dancers, resulting in his arms being ripped off. he wakes up in a hospital with Dr. Hartman, who, in a bizarre twist, informs him that tiny, baby-sized arms have grown back in their place. This grotesque, yet temporary, physical transformation, where Peter's arms are replaced by miniature versions, is a profound conspiracy about the malleability of the human body in Quahog. It defies all biological logic, suggesting that the characters' physical forms are not fixed, but subject to sudden, unexplained alterations, almost as if they are avatars in a game with changeable attributes. Amidst this chaos, Meg finds unexpected connection with Bruce, the bowling alley counterworker. They bond over their parents not understanding them, and Bruce invites Meg on a date involving grilled cheese, fries, and edibles while staring at the solar system carpet. Their relationship quickly escalates, leading to Bruce proposing marriage to Meg at the bowling alley. This sudden whirlwind romance for Meg, usually the butt of all jokes, feels unusually fast-tracked, almost as if it's a narrative experiment to see how she handles happiness. However, Lois, ever the overprotective mother, expresses concern to Peter that Bruce might be gay. She tries to convince Meg with an old educational film about homosexuality, leading to a heated argument where Meg accuses Lois of trying to ruin her happiness. This familial conflict highlights the Griffin's inability to accept Meg's happiness, almost as if her suffering is a necessary component of their family dynamic. The conspiracy reaches its peak during Meg and Bruce's wedding ceremony. Meg, at the altar, hesitates, then bravely stops the wedding, revealing she knows Bruce is gay. She explains that she saw it in his iPhone photo library and in his interactions with his parents. Bruce, surprised but relieved, comes out to his shocked parents. He then, in a truly heartwarming twist, proposes to Jeffrey, a man crying in the audience, who accepts. Their impromptu wedding takes place in a Walgreens parking lot, officiated by Peter in his vest, with the Kool-Aid Man making a cameo, saying, "Oh no," before leaving. Stewie, observing all this, makes a chilling comment. They just lost the prize. This casual remark, coming from Stewie, the master manipulator, suggests that the entire romantic arc of Meg and Bruce's subsequent coming out, was a prize of some kind, a narrative outcome to be won or lost. It implies that their relationships and life choices are not entirely their own, but are part of a larger game or experiment, with Stewie as a detached observer, or even a participant. The ease with which Bruce's entire heterosexual identity is shed and replaced by his true gay identity, all within the span of a single episode, underscores the profound fluidity of identity in Quahog. The episode concludes with Peter, by a fireplace, introducing a supercut of himself with his tiny hands, further emphasizing the temporary and absurd nature of his physical transformations. The talented Mr. Stewie, despite the actual episode title of Peter's Def Jam, reveals a profound conspiracy of identity and narrative manipulation. It shows a world where physical forms are temporary, where relationships can be orchestrated or undone, and where personal identity is fluid, easily revealed or concealed. Stewie's detached observation of Meg's prize status, coupled with his own documented history of creating elaborate simulations and manipulating others, suggests a universe where personal lives are not entirely their own, but are subject to a higher, unseen narrative control, often for the amusement or testing of its inhabitants. And this idea of characters being tested or trying to break free from their assigned roles takes on a new dimension when Stewie himself tries to live independently. Even their own families, only to reveal their reality. Our journey continues with Season 20, Episode 15, The D in Apartment 23, an episode that delves into a profound conspiracy of manufactured reality and the unsettling idea that one of the main characters is trapped in a delusion, carefully curated by an external force or even by the show itself. The episode kicks off with Peter and his friends at the Drunken Clam, lamenting yet another theme night at the bar. They learn about the grand opening of VR World, but Peter, in a typical misunderstanding, leads them to RV World, a parking lot filled with RVs. This initial confusion highlights Peter's inherent lack of perception, a trait that becomes crucial to the episode's central conspiracy. They eventually find their way to the actual, virtual reality world, where they try out various simulations, including Peter as the Hulk. Meanwhile, Meg, at a bowling alley, is once again struggling with social connection. She challenges other patrons to a game and is approached by a handsome, blonde-haired man named Seymour, who helps her with her pool shot. This initial interaction seems like a genuine romantic spark for Meg, a rare moment of happiness for the often maligned character. However, the reality quickly unravels. Meg is seen driving her red station wagon at night with Seymour in the passenger seat. He pulls a gun, robs a 7-Eleven, and a high-speed police chase ensues. Meg, in a surprising display of driving prowess, expertly maneuvers the car through a chaotic, action movie-style sequence, evading numerous police cars, driving through a canal, and jumping a drawbridge. She even uses her retainer as a walkie-talkie. This extended, dramatic chase, with its over-the-top stunts and Meg's sudden, inexplicable skill, already feels like something out of a dream or a highly unrealistic simulation. The chase culminates in a massive pileup of police cars, leaving Meg and Seymour free. They crash into Peter's red convertible, which, in a bizarre coincidence, Peter was also driving. Chris arrives at the scene and, in a shocking moment, tells Meg to leave, saying he will take the blame. But then, Chris drops the bombshell. Seymour was never real. Here's where the profound conspiracy is revealed. A series of flashbacks are shown. Meg alone at the pool hall. Meg alone in the car. Meg alone at the car wash. Seymour, the handsome criminal boyfriend, was a complete figment of her imagination, a delusion. The entire elaborate car chase, Meg's newfound driving skills, the dramatic escapes, all of it happened only in her mind. This reveal is deeply unsettling. It implies that Meg is suffering from severe delusions, or, in a meta-conspiracy, that her reality is being actively manipulated by an external force, perhaps the show itself, to create dramatic, albeit false, plotlines for her. The existence of a mustard recall due to E. coli contamination, with symptoms including delusions of having a criminal boyfriend, serves as a convenient yet flimsy explanation within the narrative. It's almost too neat, too perfectly aligned with Meg's experience, suggesting a deliberate setup. The final, most damning piece of the conspiracy comes at the very end. The scene cuts back to the VR arcade, where a man who looks exactly like Seymour takes off his VR headset. It's revealed that he was playing a Family Guy simulation, specifically the one we just witnessed. The VR arcade employee then asks if he wants to play a Bob's Burgers simulation next, which he enthusiastically agrees to. This ending retroactively turns Meg's entire, harrowing experience into a fictional game being played by an unknown individual. It implies that the real Meg, and potentially the entire Griffin family, are merely characters in a simulation, their lives and emotions subject to the whims of players in another reality. This isn't just a commentary on virtual reality. It's a profound statement about the nature of their existence. It questions the authenticity of any character's experience, suggesting that their emotional journeys, their triumphs, and their suffering could all be nothing more than programmed scenarios for entertainment. The existence of a Family Guy simulation within their own universe creates an infinite loop of simulated realities, making it impossible to discern what is truly real within the show's context. The D in Apartment 23 reveals a chilling conspiracy that Meg's entire experience, including her imagined boyfriend and the dramatic car chase, was a manufactured reality, either a delusion or a simulation. This forces us to confront the possibility that the entire Family Guy universe is a simulated environment, a game being played by unseen entities, where characters are merely pawns in an elaborate, multi-layered narrative. And this idea of characters being placed into specific, almost genre-specific roles takes on a new dimension when Peter himself is thrust into the world of film noir. A journey that might itself be a manipulated narrative. Our journey continues with Season 21, Episode 15, The Fat Man Always Rings Twice, an episode that plunges Peter into a meticulously crafted film noir parody, revealing a profound conspiracy of genre manipulation and the unsettling idea that characters can be thrust into predetermined narrative roles, complete with archetypes and plot twists as pre-written scripts. The episode opens with the Griffin family at breakfast, where Lois, after being mocked for suggesting prayers, launches into a nonsensical dream story involving a vacuum cleaner covered in hair. This mundane, yet bizarre opening quickly sets an unusual tone for the episode. Meg and Chris, seemingly fed up with the mundane, both pull out lockets containing cyanide pills, swallow them, and collapse face first onto their plates. Lois, oblivious, continues her dream story, now involving Brian and his car in Nevada. Brian, clearly exasperated, whispers to Stewie, who, in a moment of extreme yet casual time travel intervention, pulls a time travel device from his bib. They vanish and reappear on the sinking Titanic, opting for a freezing death over Lois's boring story. This extreme reaction, and Stewie's casual use of time travel to escape a tedious conversation, hints at a universe where discomfort can be a greater motivator than death, and where time itself is a tool for personal convenience. Peter, equally fed up, walks out of the house, still on the phone with Lois, and ends up at Bob's Burgers, lamenting menu prices before sadly ordering black coffee and toast. This perfectly sets the stage for his entry into a different, darker narrative. The core conspiracy begins when Peter, disillusioned with his mundane life, is abruptly thrust into the role of a hard-boiled detective in a film noir parody. The entire episode shifts in tone, visuals, and narrative structure to fit the genre, complete with shadowy lighting, cynical voiceovers, and a complex web of deceit. This isn't just Peter playing dress-up. The entire world of Quahog morphs around him to accommodate this genre shift. This suggests a profound, meta-level manipulation of reality, where the narrative itself can be reprogrammed to fit a specific cinematic style, and characters are cast into predetermined roles. Peter, as the detective, is hired by a mysterious, alluring woman to investigate her missing husband. He encounters classic noir archetypes: a corrupt police chief, a shadowy femme fatale, and a series of double crosses. The familiar characters of Quahog are recast. Joe is the corrupt police chief, Quagmire is a sleazy informant, and Lois, in a classic noir twist, becomes the manipulative femme fatale. Even Stewie and Brian are given roles, though they often break character, pointing out the absurdity of the situation. This transformation of familiar characters into genre archetypes implies that their core personalities are flexible, adaptable to the needs of the narrative, almost as if they are actors in a play, waiting for their next script. The investigation leads Peter through a labyrinth of clues, red herrings, and violent encounters. He uncovers a plot involving a valuable item, betrayal, and murder. The heightened drama, the moral ambiguities, and the constant twists are all meticulously crafted to fit the noir genre. Peter, despite his usual buffoonery, navigates this complex narrative with surprising, albeit comedic, competence, almost as if the detective role itself imbues him with a temporary intelligence. The climax of the episode sees Peter confronting the true mastermind behind the plot, unmasking the villain in a classic noir reveal. The resolution, while still comedic, adheres to the conventions of the genre, with Peter delivering a final, cynical monologue about the dark underbelly of Quahog. The Fat Man Always Rings Twice reveals a chilling conspiracy of genre manipulation. It suggests that the Family Guy universe is not bound by a single, consistent reality, but can be reshaped and rescripted to fit different narrative molds. Peter's sudden, seamless transition into a film noir detective and the recasting of all his friends and family into genre archetypes implies a powerful, unseen force that dictates the narrative, moving characters through different stories for unknown purposes. This makes us question the authenticity of any given storyline, wondering if the characters are truly experiencing their lives, or if they are merely playing out pre-written roles in a grand, ever-changing series of genre experiments. This idea of characters being unwitting participants in a larger, perhaps even scientific endeavor, takes on a new, unsettling meaning when we consider Stewie's unusual fascination with fertility and legacy. Desar hinting at a deeper, biological imperative beneath his intellectual pursuits, or perhaps an attempt to create his own lineage. Our journey concludes with Season 22, Episode 1, Fertilize This, an episode that, while ostensibly focusing on Meg's journey into motherhood, subtly hints at a profound conspiracy surrounding fertility, legacy, and the predetermined roles characters play in the grand, unseen experiments of the Family Guy universe. The episode opens with Chris and Stewie having breakfast, as Stewie prepares a birthday card and discusses a party. Peter enters, scratched and disheveled from filling out tax forms, a mundane chaos that quickly gives way to something far more significant. Lois, with bleach mustaches, dispatches Meg to take Stewie to the party. This initial setup is typical Griffin family dynamic, but it's the bowling alley party itself that provides the catalyst for profound change. At the bowling alley, Meg, Chris, and Stewie join Peter and his friends. Peter, ever the showman, bowls a strike with a theatrical flourish, yelling legally sanctioned sound effects, a peculiar phrase that subtly reminds us of the artificiality of their world. Stewie, meanwhile, meets a rival boy named William. Their immediate, intense competition in bowling, where Stewie only gets 1 pin to William's 9, leaves Stewie furious, especially when he discovers Joe is using his lucky dinosaur bowling ramp. This small detail, Stewie's reliance on a specific tool for success, hints at his underlying insecurity, and perhaps his need for control, even over trivial matters. The true conspiracy of the episode begins when Meg, while helping Bruce clean the bowling alley after the party, has a sudden, unexpected epiphany. She realizes, almost out of nowhere, that she can become a surrogate mother for Bruce and Jeffrey. This is a monumental moment for Meg, often the most neglected and derided member of the family, as she finds a profound sense of purpose in the act of creation. But is this epiphany a genuine, organic realization, or a narrative spark ignited by some unseen force, designed to push Meg into a role that explores themes of legacy and family? Her sudden certainty feels almost pre-programmed. The family reacts with predictable shock, but Meg is resolute. A montage then unfolds, depicting Meg's 9-month pregnancy, marked by changing seasons and holidays. This sequence, with its focus on the biological process, is a rare, grounded moment in the typically chaotic Family Guy universe. It emphasizes the weight and reality of her commitment. Stewie's reaction during this time is particularly telling. After the baby is born, and Bruce and Jeffrey decide to leave the child with Meg for the night, Stewie orders sushi for everyone except the now post-pregnant Meg. This subtle exclusion, seemingly a minor slight, could be interpreted as Stewie's subconscious rejection of the natural, messy process of human fertility, or perhaps a detached observation of it, as if she's now completed her function in this particular experiment. Meg, holding the newborn, experiences a deep, emotional connection, realizing that motherhood is her true calling. However, in a bittersweet, yet predictable turn for Quahog, she tearfully hands the baby over to Bruce and Jeffrey, who promise she'll always be a part of the child's life. This immediate relinquishing of the child, even after Meg finds her purpose, prevents her from establishing a direct, lasting legacy through the child's upbringing. The child's existence, in this context, serves primarily as a catalyst for Meg's self-discovery, rather than as an individual whose life she will shape. This makes us wonder if lasting legacy is ever truly permitted in Quahog, or if it's always subservient to the narrative arcs of existing characters. Meanwhile, Lois, in a bizarre subplot, embraces the role of sexy grandma, wearing revealing clothes and drinking wine from a huge glass. This desperate attempt to maintain a youthful, desirable image in the face of new family roles highlights a broader social satire, but also suggests a comedic resistance to the natural progression of familial generations. Her exaggerated persona feels almost like a performance, a coping mechanism for the shift in her own perceived identity. The episode concludes with Bruce and Jeffrey, now with their baby, sitting on the couch, joined by Lois, still in her sexy grandma attire. A random cutaway featuring two homeless men discussing a GILF sweater, which one claims means, "God, I love fentanyl," abruptly undercuts the emotional weight of Meg's journey. This jarring return to dark, absurd humor, right after a moment of profound character development, reinforces the conspiracy that genuine emotional resonance and lasting personal legacies are often fleeting in Quahog, quickly disrupted by the show's inherent chaos. Fertilize This reveals a profound conspiracy about the nature of legacy and purpose in the Family Guy universe. Meg's journey into surrogacy, her finding of purpose, and the subsequent relinquishing of the child all suggest that characters' lives are often guided by external forces to explore specific themes, rather than allowing for true, lasting personal growth or the establishment of a direct legacy. Stewie's subtle detachment and calculated exclusions, coupled with the show's tendency to undercut emotional moments with absurd humor, imply a universe where even the most fundamental biological processes and familial bonds are subject to manipulation, observation, or comedic disruption, preventing any character from truly settling into a stable, enduring identity. It leaves us pondering if any character's journey is truly their own, or if they are all narrative experiments. And with that, our 3 hours of Family Guy lore, filled with the unsettling whispers of conspiracy, draws to a close. We've journeyed through simulated realities, manipulated timelines, and the profound, often tragic depths of characters caught in a universe that seems to be constantly rewriting itself. From Stewie's hidden technological prowess and Peter's accidental nation, to Brian's existential awareness and Meg's manufactured purpose, Quahog is a town where nothing is quite as it seems. It's a world where the lines between reality and simulation blur, where free will is a suggestion, and where every laugh might just be a cue in a larger unseen script. Remember the shifting timelines, the repeated narrative loops, and the characters' unwitting roles in a cosmic play. These unsettling truths linger long after the laughter fades, leaving us to wonder, what other conspiracies lie hidden beneath the surface of our favorite animated worlds?